War Digital Digest. I'm Will. Thank you for requesting this special episode of the Digest. Today, we're in a modern kitchen. Actually, it's my family kitchen. And we're going to teach you how to make hardtack the best way that we figured out. Well, when I say best, and I say we, it's not just the team here at Civil War Digital Digest. In order to produce this episode, we stand on the shoulders of the late Charles Heath, and we say thank you to others like Michael Schaffner, Francis Chappell, Scott Sheets, and Dave Thomas for everything that they've shared with us over the past couple of years. Hardtack was the staple for so many of the Union soldiers. John Billings called his memoir of the war Hardtack and Coffee. It was the food you got on the march along with salt pork. We need to find a way to replicate it, but first we need to realize a couple of things about hardtack. Hardtack is issued at about 10 crackers per man per day. Okay, think about that. 500 pieces in a box, that's 50 men. A 300-man regiment takes 6 boxes every day. Think about the massive volume that was necessary to feed even one Union regiment, let alone a corps, let alone an entire army on the move, and you can see how much of this was produced at a time. It was produced in commercial bakeries. Those commercial bakeries had large machines like dough breaks and cracker makers at their disposal. Today in the modern kitchen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use some specialized tools and a regular kitchen appliance to replicate that. Let's take a look at our tools for the day. We're going to use a stand mixer. Ours is the one that comes out of our family kitchen. Whatever you have will work. Make sure you have the dough hook on it. And then we're going to go ahead when it's time to lay out the hardtack, and we're going to use hardtack cutters. 3 manufacturers of cutters across the nation have all sent in examples for us to test, and we'll talk to you about what we think of them and where the strengths for each of them are. You'll find that when you bake, sometimes you want to let the oven warm up even beyond the preheat cycle. And in our case, we're going to use steam. The period manuals mention baking with steam, and we found that this is a way to better replicate the hardtack. People in the past have made hardtack at home and the edges curl up and it gets wavy and crinkly. It doesn't happen as much when you use steam. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to preheat the oven to 450. But before we start it, we're going to get an oven-safe pan and fill it a little ways up with water. We'll put this in the oven and let it come to temperature with. Well, let's go ahead and make the hardtack. The ingredients are really simple. It's 4 cups of flour and 1.5 cups of water. So, why do I have 2 different containers of flour out here on the counter? The hardtack that I'm replicating has a certain color, and as we've been preparing to shoot this, we found that using 3 cups of all-purpose flour blended with 1 cup of whole wheat pastry flour gives us the look that we really want once the crackers have baked and cooled. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and combine those 2. Now, during the Civil War, this would have been just 1 flour. So I'm going to take a fork and quickly I'm going to just stir this up. All right, now that we've got the flour combined as one, we're going to take the flour and the water and move over to the stand mixer. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the flour in the stand mixer, and we've got the dough hook set on here. Just to make life a little easier, we'll get that out of the way, and we'll get this added. Now that the flour is in the stand mixer, it's time to start it. We're going to run it at first for 5 minutes on the lowest setting. And while we do that, we're going to keep a rubber spatula nearby. In these 5 minutes, we're going to slowly add the water and let the flour and the water combine. The power of the mixer is going to help us in doing this. My kitchen timer is set to 5 minutes. Let me start it and away we go. As the machine continues to mix, we can see that the dough is starting to be formed as the flour and water combine. My friend Michael Shafter, who wrote an excellent treatise on replicating hardtack, mentions that this will end up looking like, as he described it, a rough gravel. The goal of this first 5 minutes is to let the stand mixer take the flour and water and get them combined. We're looking for a rough gravel look. We're not looking for a final polish. We'll just make sure this has the time to do its work. I'm watching to make sure that the dough doesn't climb up and out the edge and that anything in the bottom gets as best combined as it can. Sometimes in the first 5 minutes, the dough wants to walk up and out. I find I quickly stop this, raise the hook, and push everything into the bottom. I can drop it back in, hit the lock, and go back and keep it moving. All right, so the first 5 minutes are done. Now we're going to pull the dough out of the stand mixer, and we just want to make sure that everything is combined. The way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and just hand knead just a few times. Again, remember, most of this work is being done by the machinery, which is to replicate how it happened during the Civil War, but we just want to make sure everything is combined. Sometimes when I've made hardtack in the past and I get to this stage, there's still a little bit of that rough gravel that we mentioned in the bottom of the stand mixer. Now would be the time to dump that out and just give it a couple of hand mixes just to make sure everything was mixed in and gets into this one ball of dough. You'll notice that right before I pulled the dough out, I went and quickly took some flour out of the bin and just lightly floured the surface. That just helps keep the dough from sticking. Once we've hand kneaded this a couple of times and made sure that everything's combined, we're going to head back over to the stand mixer. So now we're going to take it back into the stand mixer, lock it up. We're going to go second setting up from the bottom rather than the bottom setting, and we're going to let this run for 6 minutes and just let it continue to combine and let the hook and the dough continue to beat and combine the dough. Okay, I'd like to say this is a great time for you to take a break, let the machine do its work, and walk away, do something else. I don't recommend that. Another bread baking book that I've been studying mentioned that as this stand mixer bounces, its weight can bounce right off the side of the counter. So stay here, stay at least passingly attentive while you wait this time and let this dough combine. Okay, the dough is starting to get high up and out the edge again. I'm going to go ahead and unlock it, pull the dough off the hook, get it down into the bottom, relock it, and get it started again. All right, so the 6 minutes is up. Let's go ahead and stop the stand mixer, and we're done with it now for making hardtack. We'll unlock it, bring the dough out. These are the options that you have right now to be able to cut the hardtack most accurately to original pieces. We have 3 manufacturers who have sent us pieces, and all of them have their strengths. All of them are actually friends of mine. We have Axel from Axel Ulrich Tinware, Bridger from C. Haynes and Company, and Robbie from Escape by Design. First, the one that looks most different is the tin offering from Ulrich Tin. The tin is the most durable of the batch that we have. The handle is great. If I wished for anything, I wish that the pins were just a little bit longer. Well, the great thing we can say about both 3D printing manufacturers is that they're looking out for your best interest. They're using a product manufacturer called PLA. It is both food safe and recyclable. However, it will break down in heat. So our recommendation is that these are not machine washable. You should hand wash and keep them in a cool, dry space. Bridger's offering from C. Haynes and Company has a solid back. It's nice for durability, but sometimes it's a little bit more tricky to get the cracker worked out of. This actually is pulled from an original that he was given permission to reproduce from the Varna Memorial Armory. The original was carried by a soldier from the 1st Minnesota Heavy Artillery. Next, we'll move to the products from Escape by Design. Robbie has manufactured a number. One of them he's done in cooperation with us. That is the Norman R. Gifford Hardtack reproduction. Collector Kyle Stetz has a piece and a half of hardtack sent home by Norman Gifford, who was in his ancestor's own regiment, the 10th New York Cavalry. We've been given permission and we've reproduced that. As Robbie's done other research, Escape by Design has a couple of different shapes, pin configurations, and even stamps in them that mention the company that made the crackers. The one thing I will say, I really like working with these cutters. I find that by having the backs open, if the cracker gets in a little too deep, I could push from back here either with my finger or with the back of a butter knife and get the dough started out. I also find I can control the depth a little bit better by pushing down a little bit more because they're separated. The trade-off, these are probably the lightest duty of the bunch. If you just take care, hand wash, and keep them in a safe place, you'll be fine. No matter which of the three manufacturers you pick, you're going to run into somebody who I'm good friends with and a product that I'm proud to stand behind. All right, what we want to do with the dough is we want to roll it out. But when you look at the hardtack, take a look at the photo we got from collector Kyle Stetz. The half piece of hardtack he has, see how there's almost layers within the hardtack? We're going to go ahead and replicate that. The dough, we're going to roll it out twice. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll it flat. And when I do this, I find that when I flip rolling, if I both flip it over and turn it 90 degrees, I'm having good luck with that. I'm not looking for a particular thickness. I'm just looking to get the dough rolled out, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take this dough and we're going to fold it, and that's going to start to give some of those layers when we roll it out again. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the dough and we're going to take it and fold it from me 1/3 toward the center. I'm going to go away from me, take it and fold that third in. I'm then going to turn this. I'm going to take 1/3 and 1/3. And we've got the dough in a more compact shape, maybe a little bit more flour here. And now we're going to roll it out again. Now's when we're looking for the thickness. We found that if you want 1/2 inch hardtack this way, you should roll the dough to 1/4 inch. If you are just working at home and don't have our special tool, you can eyeball it. However, we've now released a new appliance for making hardtack. This is a 1/4 inch dough roller. Living historian Michael Schaffner found that this concept worked really well when he was writing his treatise on how to replicate hardtack. And what we've done is we've taken his concept, gone to a 3D printer, and made the ends available for sale. You can just get a 1-inch dowel at any big box store or any place you can buy lumber, insert it and screw the ends in. We find this works a lot better. Let's go ahead first and get the dough rolling out a little bit. Once I get a couple of rolls, I'm going to switch from the regular rolling pin to my 1/4 inch dough roller. This is going to keep me from going any further down than 1/4 inch. When using the dough roller to make the dough even, don't feel like it needs to rest on the countertop when you're not touching it. A little spring in that dough is going to be helpful. Again, we're still going to do the same thing. All right, now that the dough is rolled out, we need to go ahead and cut the hardtack. We're going to take one of the cutters and we're going to keep a spatula nearby to keep things straight, and we're going to go ahead and grab a cookie sheet. One trick that I find works really well when I'm laying hardtack onto a cookie sheet is to sprinkle just a little bit of cornmeal down first. It was described to me once as being like ball bearings. It's just going to keep the hardtack from adhering and make it easier to get off after we bake. It doesn't take very much, just a little bit. We'll take care of this. Now we're going to take our hardtack cutter and we're just going to cut out what we need for crackers. One thing I found that I like to do with anything either for sale through Civil War Digital Digest or manufactured by Escape by Design is as I punch the cutter into the dough, I find that I like to run my finger along all the rails, and that gives me a little bit deeper push through on the pins. All right, now that we're done cutting for this first round, we're going to save the extra, but I'm going to go ahead and take a simple kitchen paring knife, make the rest of the cuts. We'll use a spatula, and we're going to go ahead and put the crackers that we already have made on our cookie sheet that's been pre-covered in cornmeal. The reason for the knife is if you look at almost any of the existing pieces of hardtack that are around, you do either a web search or look through Civil War history books, you see they hold a fairly square shape. If I just start tugging at this dough, I'm going to misshape the cracker now. If I misshape it now, we're never going to get it back. So I want to take care of it here to get the best replication possible. All right, 12 are done. We've still got some dough left. Let's just combine it real quick, roll it out again, and we'll do this all over. All right, so we've got our dough rolled out, cut out, and it's ready to go into the oven. Almost. Our friend Michael Schaffner has found one more thing as he developed his treatise, and we've tested it and it works really well. Again, we want to bake with steam. One way to keep this hardtack from curling up is to go ahead and soak just a little bit of water on top of each cracker. So we'll pull this back toward us. We're going to grab a little bit of fresh water just out of the tap. And with our fingertips, we're just going to moisten the top of each cracker. So a little bit here. All right, now that that's done, it's time to head into the oven. Just be careful. This oven has had water in it. It's at 450 degrees and has been that way for a while. We want to bake with steam. That also means when you open the oven, you're going to get steam in the face. Stand back, be careful. Now that it's in, just a word about baking time. To get hardtack that is harder and drier like Civil War hardtack like we see here, we recommend 450 degrees for 20 minutes. If you are looking for something that's a little bit softer and maybe just a little bit more chewable, we've seen accounts out of the records where soldiers talked about being able to make a sandwich out of it. Take that for only 15 minutes. We're going to set the oven. We'll be back in a little bit. All right, so it's been 20 minutes. It's time to shut the oven off. If this is the only batch you're making for the day, the recommendation that we have is to go ahead, open the oven up for just a little bit. Remember, there's steam in there. You want to let it escape. And then after we give that a second, we're going to take some hot pads. The oven is shut off. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the pan of water. Remember, you've been at 450 and that water's in there. It's going to be really hot. Be careful with this. Let that set just a second to let the steam get out. We're going to close it up and let the hardtack continue to dry in there as the oven cools down. Now that the oven is shut off, the steam and moisture are out of there and everything is cooling together, we're going to let that go for about 10 minutes and we'll come back in just a little bit, pull them out and finish up. Okay, so we've let the oven cool and let the hardtack continue to dry in there a little bit longer. Let's go ahead, pull them out, see how we're doing. All right, fantastic. When we compare to the Gifford hardtack, well, I'm real happy with the way these crackers look as we try to replicate a 160-year-old baking product. They're very even. The shape is good. There is a little bit of curl here and there, but what we don't have in cracker reproduction is we don't have a large lot of crackers sitting in one place that all came from one manufacturer to see what minor variances there would be in the same batch. We just don't know. I was really happy to get the pieces from Kyle Stetz to be able to use, because at least we had a piece and a half from the same lot. I can go ahead, store them, and they'll keep for a couple of months. The big enemy of hard crackers, no matter how you make them, is moisture. Make sure they stay dry and watch them. But for now, using the stand mixer, using the best practices we shared today, and using any one of our 3 manufacturers, Hardtack cutters, and the dough guide, it's going to make things more even and better, and you're going to create a better product that's going to help you get a better connection to the experience of the American soldier in the Civil War. We hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you another time.